All right, thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. This is episode 27. So this episode, we'll be looking at the Week 6 slate of the NFL season. And, you know, with each preview episode that I do for the NFL, always start off with some NFL news, then go into the top matchups of the weekend. Then I have to go through, give you my picks, of course. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, we'll preview next coming episodes for the week ahead. So stay tuned for that as well. So to kick off this episode, looking at NFL news, pandemic has affected the schedule yet again, as Chiefs at Bills, which was supposed to be played Thursday night, got moved to Monday night. Second Monday night game again. It will be 5 o'clock. And of course, it got moved because the Bills played the Titans on Tuesday. So it wouldn't be fair to the Bills to play Tuesday and then turn around, play the Chiefs on Thursday. So naturally, NFL flexed the game to Monday. And so, like I said, we're getting a second Monday night game, which I'm okay with. I'm liking the idea. And I'm thinking that's going to be something going forward. 2 Monday night games, because the pandemic's not going away. You're going to keep having, teams be affected somehow, whether it's players, coaches, practice squad, equipment guys, whoever. And I just feel like the NFL is just going to, because I've said this before, the theme for this year is fluidity. The NFL is going to be, the NFL office is going to be fluid. The players are going to be fluid. Coaches, all of that. Networks, you got to be fluid with the whole situation. So when you look at the NFL schedule, like Wednesday, getting ready for Thursday night football, the games that are listed Thursday night, Sunday, Monday may not be played as they're scheduled. But good thing is, they haven't had any situation where games have been postponed. They couldn't really find a spot to move the game, and they've had to take advantage of week 17. No, they have week 17. I mean, like week 18 or even a week 19. They haven't gone to that extreme yet. They've talked about it as a possibility if needed, but as of right now, hasn't come down to that yet. And the only way they would come down to that is, as we're getting into teams actually having their real bye week. If there's a matchup between two teams that gets postponed, but there's no bye week available, then you jump into week 18. Then if it happens again, you got week 19. So much like the MLB season, the NFL could end up with the same thing where baseball had to deal with the whole Marlins situation, which looked like it may take down the whole season, where they had a bunch of players test positive. And, they didn't play for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Then you had the Cardinals had an outbreak as well. Then the Cardinals didn't play for a week and a half or 2. So it was starting to look like maybe baseball didn't do it right without having a bubble and everything. Not to say baseball got it completely right, because, we know baseball has their issues, but they made it through their 60-game season. They made it into their playoffs. Now in the playoffs, they did implement a bubble. It was easier then, less teams. And now they're on the verge of having their World Series get started. So all in all, for baseball, was a success. They were able to get through their season, and they're going to crown a champion. So, which I guess stay tuned for that, because that plays into, upcoming episodes. We'll talk about that later in the episode. So for the NFL, maybe this Tennessee situation, and now Jacksonville has had a little bit of a outbreak this past week with, practice squad players, of like basically all of them being put on the COVID-19 list. So maybe these are the two teams where they kind of have like a mini outbreak, and then going forward, it's just little cases here or there. And NFL gets through, plays schedule as scheduled, week 17, then go into the playoffs and all that. So speaking of players and, COVID-19 lists, Cam Newton, Stephon Gilmore, both from the Patriots, two of the bigger names that were on the list last week, are both off the list and are expected to play today. Their game against the Broncos. And there were some positive tests over the course of this past week, but it was, a defensive lineman in Atlanta. The running backs coach for Denver got it. And a couple of other players other than outside of the Jacksonville practice squad cases. Even with the Patriots, they did have to put Sony Michel, James Ferentz, and a couple other players onto the COVID list. I believe only one of them tested positive. I think the other ones are on there for being in close contact with that player. So, as Adam Schefter let everybody know this morning, all the games are scheduled to go as planned for week 6. So that's definitely a win for the NFL. But, that's enough of the news off the field. Let's get onto the field. Let's look at week 6. Pick my top 5 games for the weekend. So if you definitely have a chance, do a little channel surfing. If you can find these games in your area, I would say definitely take a look and stay with it. Or do like most people, put Red Zone on like a laptop second TV or something. Just sit back and enjoy it. First matchup are the Chicago Bears going to Carolina to face the Panthers. I'm sure, looking at it on paper, this matchup doesn't seem that intriguing. But to me, what's intriguing about it is you have the Panthers, who are 3-2, could be the surprise team in the NFL right now. And their quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, is actually playing pretty well. He's, at least in the last game against Atlanta, he's shown some mobility in the pocket. He's also taking good care of the ball, which he's always done that. But it's just good to see him having some success after, his time in Minnesota ended with that gruesome leg injury that he suffered. And a lot of people were questioning whether he would ever get back to being a starting quarterback, much less even play again. So, and I talked about this last week, to imagine that he and Alex Smith are both starting quarterbacks in the league today is incredible, because both of them went through, gruesome leg injuries. Both of them had questions about whether they could still play. They've both shown that they can, and they've actually got starting jobs. So, congratulations to those two. And then with the Bears, you have this the Bears season just has been just up and down, just all over the place, where coming into the year, most people were wondering why Trubisky was still there. Why didn't the Bears go out and get another quarterback? Then they did. They got Nick Foles. Everybody was like, okay, Nick Foles is clearly going to be the starting quarterback. No. Trubisky started the year. They get off to 2-0 start. He was still kind of middle of the road. And then they get into their week 3 game against the Falcons. Trubisky completely struggles in the first half. Matt Nagy goes, you know what? Make the switch. Brings in Nick Foles. Nick Foles has a great second half. More like great fourth quarter. Brings them back from 16-point deficit. Win the game. Going forward, they're like, okay, Nick Foles is our starter. Have a hiccup against the Bucks. Not against the Bucks. The Colts, sorry. They had a hiccup against the Colts, where the offense was anemic. Only scored 11 points. Then flipped it around. Foles came back against the Bucks. Got a big win. So they're sitting at 4-1 now. Getting ready to take on the Panthers, who are 3-2. And I'm just interested to see Teddy Bridgewater going up against that Bears defense. And of course, for the Panthers, they have to make sure they keep Khalil Mack in check. Other side, you have the Bears. Nick Foles, can they recapture that magic from fourth quarter against the Falcons? And last week against the Bucs, they did look pretty good on offense. But there's still some skeptics about their offense out there, so this will be another chance for them to kind of show, can they be a team that we should take seriously going forward, NFC playoff picture. So that's matchup number 1. Matchup number 2, I've got the Cleveland Browns going to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. Now, there's really no explanation needed for this matchup. 2 divisional rivals, two fan bases that don't like each other, hence why they're rivals. But then you add on to it the matchup last year, which led to the whole incident between Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph, where Garrett ripped off his helmet, hit Rudolph over the head with it. Became, big issue, being a black eye for the league. And, the Garrett faced, I believe he was suspended from that point on. And now he's come back. He's looked like maybe the most dominant defensive lineman in the league. Yes, I'm sure Aaron Donald will have something to say about that, but Myles Garrett is up there in the conversation. So, this matchup, it's, can Myles Garrett create havoc in the backfield for Ben Roethlisberger and James Conner and those guys, and really disrupt that offense for the Steelers, which is still, pass-based, as they found Chase Claypool last week, who's probably going to be settled in as the new number 1 receiver there. Because, as I said before, Smith-Schuster coming into this year is supposed to be the number 1 guy. I just feel like Smith-Schuster is more comfortable being the number 2 option and taking advantage of like the second corner instead of being matched up against the top corner. So, it's not to say that Schuster isn't a good wide receiver, because he is, but I just think he's more comfortable being number 2. And Claypool, if he can, sure, it's going to be tough to ask him to get, 3-4 touchdowns every week, but if he can make himself a viable number 1 option, just give him another touchdown this week, then Pittsburgh's offense will be much better for it. Swap it. You have the Browns and their, high-powered offense. At least they've shown that ability to be high-powered, going up against a Steelers defense that, appears to be much improved this year. And I believe they're one of the top passing defenses in the league. So we'll be interested to see which offense can, take advantage of which team's defense. Because also flipping the other side, I believe the Browns are a great run defense. And the Steelers, they may be known for their passing game with Ben Roethlisberger, but deep down, the Steelers love to run the ball. So there's the dynamic between those two teams. Now moving on. Third matchup, I've got Green Bay Packers going to Tampa Bay, face the Bucs. This one's self-explanatory. You have Aaron Rodgers going up against Tom Brady. What else needs to be said? Let's move on. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's kind of where this matchup goes. Rodgers versus Brady. The matchup that we never got in a Super Bowl. Interesting enough, because Brady, seen as the best quarterback of this era, maybe all time. That's an argument for another day. Aaron Rodgers is seen as the most talented quarterback of this era. So you have your most talented against your most successful. Yet, the matchup never happened. There were a couple of years where it looked like it may happen in the Super Bowl, but Rodgers' Packers came up short. And then the one year where Rodgers did make the Super Bowl, they went up against, I want to say it's the Steelers. Yes. Yeah, the Steelers. Pretty sure about that. So, but yeah, they've both been on teams that have been successful each year, like the same year, but one of them or neither of them would make the Super Bowl. And now that Brady's 43, he's on his way out. He's got probably another year. Well, depending on how this year goes, he'll have another year, maybe two, he can squeeze out of his career. Rodgers is also getting up there in years. I believe Rodgers is 37, 38, I think. That sounds about right. So we may never get the matchup in the Super Bowl, but at least now with Brady in the NFC or with Rodgers, we can still hold out hope for, a matchup like this in the regular season. And who knows, maybe they meet up again in the playoffs, which would be exciting for the league. And the league, I'm sure, would love to see that. So, but yeah, Packers are still undefeated. Haven't really beaten anybody yet. I think the best team you could say that they've beaten were probably the Vikings, who were 1-4. But it's still great matchup on paper. Packers are supposed to get Devontae Adams back. The Bucks are supposed to get Chris Godwin back. So that's big for both quarterbacks. Defensively, the Packers and Bucks are both, decent defenses. But like I said, Packers haven't played anybody, so we're not really sure how good their defense is. The Bucks have a younger defense that's slowly coming around each game, so that's going to be another aspect. Which defense can maybe turn over, which quarterback first? And who knows, that could be the difference in the game where, one team is able to take that 10-point lead or 14-point lead, which will, be a huge deal because this could be a game that goes back and forth in terms of scoring. So if one team can turn the other team over and increase the lead to more than one possession, that could be big here. Or even allowing just a field goal instead of a touchdown could turn the game, in one team's favor. So definitely want to see that matchup. Next matchup, we have the Kansas City Chiefs going to Buffalo to face the Bills. Now, traveling to Buffalo is always an interesting trip because Buffalo is it's a tough place to play. It is. Those fans are crazy, especially now that the team's good. They're even worse. The stadium's in a way where, if you play and there happens to be a little bit of wind, the wind in that stadium plays, tricks on kickers, and it's just a mess up there. So, the Bills, I'm sure, are ready for Kansas City. Kansas City has to be just eager to get this one going because the Chiefs want to get that taste of that Raiders loss out of their mouth. So I'm expecting the Chiefs to come out in this game and look to dominate because they want to redeem themselves. The Bills coming off that matchup against Tennessee, where Tennessee dominated them. The Bills want to show that's not who they are. They want to get back to, that good feeling of getting a big win. So if the Bills can beat the Chiefs, we might have to start talking about what's going on with the Chiefs, 2 straight losses. But then also the Bills can, elevate themselves into that conversation, trying to be the top team in the AFC or one of the top teams. And because if you remember my top 10 team list that I did a couple episodes ago, I didn't have the Bills in my top 10. If the Bills can beat the Chiefs, of course I'd have to put them up there, but we'll see. The Chiefs did sign Le'Veon Bell, which I guess I could have put in the NFL news part, but it doesn't look like Bell will play today. So they did make news in signing him, but don't expect to see him on the field for this game. And the Bills, I don't think they have any major injuries, so it'll be. And with that Chiefs defense we have seen so far this year, you can throw on that team. So I'm expecting, Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs to be a big thing today. That's for any of you, fantasy players out there. If you have Stephon Diggs, I would play him in this matchup. But yeah, you can throw on the Chiefs. And then the Bills defense hasn't looked anything like we were expecting. They look like they're definitely worse than people were picking them to be. And with that Chiefs offense, there's, like I say every week, the Chiefs have plenty of weapons. It's more or less, can you confuse Mahomes like the Raiders did? And the Patriots pretty much did that too, just that the Patriots didn't come up with some of those interceptions. But yeah, the blueprint's kind of been put out there by the Patriots and Raiders. Now, whether you have the talent defensively to do that, the Bills should. So we'll have to see how that plays out today. But yeah, that should be a good one. Although, interesting enough, it's a game where it could be like a field goal game, or one team could completely come out, win by 10. I don't know. It's an interesting matchup. Last matchup, it's another one that, may not be an obvious one, but I'm going with the Cardinals traveling to Dallas to face the Cowboys. And the intrigue here is, I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. There's something about Kyler Murray I just like about him. Yeah, he's a shorter quarterback, but he seems like he's getting there. He's not where he will ultimately be, but you see the improvement from last year to this year. And the Cardinals do have weapons on the outside. They still have Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless one. But you got DeAndre Hopkins. Murray to Hopkins has been a big thing this year. Murray loves having Hopkins there. Hopkins is putting up numbers. They also have Christian Kirk, the young receiver they got last year. He's gone off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think that's mainly because Hopkins is there, so naturally Murray looks for Hopkins first. But hopefully they can get, Christian Kirk into the mix this week. Then for the Cowboys, we all know it's Andy Dalton's first start for the Cowboys. After that injury from Dak Prescott last week, which made plenty of news. It was a gruesome injury if you watched it live on TV. Or I'm sure by this point you've probably seen some image somewhere on the internet. Maybe you watched the highlights on YouTube. Although I think they blurred it out. I'm not sure, but we all know what happened there. So, Dalton as a backup, Red Rifle is his nickname. Actually, pretty good nickname, but he's not the worst in terms of a backup quarterback. Dalton played all those years in Cincinnati, got that team to the playoffs, I think, on 5 occasions. Don't think he won any playoff games, but just getting them there with the mess of situation that was, you got to give him credit for that. And, going up against the Cardinals, and there's going to be a lot of pressure, I think, at least for Dalton mentally, to want to kind of recreate what Dak is. I would just say he just has to go out there, play his game. You have Ezekiel Elliott, who you can hand the ball off to, see what he's got going. But if not, you've got some guys in the receiving game that you can rely on. But yeah, interesting to see how Dalton does. If Dalton does struggle, that's going to put a lot of pressure on him, because I don't know if they have a third string quarterback right now. If they do, it's somebody that, you definitely don't want to see. But if he were to struggle, they may have to go quarterback hunting, because the trade deadline is actually on election day. So November 3rd, couple of weeks, they may be in the market to get a quarterback. If Dalton does struggle, today, going into next week, But if he does play well today, it'll at least give Cowboys, coaches and fans a sigh of relief that maybe they can recover from their slow start. Of course, the division is terrible, but at least they can maybe look to distance themselves and feel more comfortable this year. Cardinals, upstart team. Their division is a tough one because they have the Seahawks over there. The Cowboys, not the Cowboys, the 49ers have gone through some injuries, but the 49ers are actually starting to get some people back. So if the Cardinals can get a win today, push their record to 4-2, that would really help them out because they're trying to, secure some footing in the playoff race. The NFC, there's a lot of teams jumbled up at like 3-2, 2-3, so a win here can kind of push them up in the pack. Yes, it's only week 6, but some of these teams are starting to think playoff positioning because the season's about to get, really fast, really quick. Because usually once you get into, November football and December football, that's when each game takes on added meaning. So the more wins you can get now before you get to like Thanksgiving, the better for you. So there's my top 5 matchups for the weekend. 5 pretty good games, and there are some other games I didn't even put on the list that are intriguing as well. But with that, let's switch on over to what do we got going here? Yes, my picks. Week 6 picks. And just to recap, last week I went 4-2. I believe that was the 3rd week in a row I went 4-2. So I keep trying to tell y'all, I'm starting to hit a little run here where I'm doing well on these picks. This week might be a little tougher because a lot of the spreads this week are like 3.5, 2.5. Not a lot of big spreads, but let's just see what happens. So to kick it off, also if you're new, I usually pick at least 5 games. Over the past few weeks, I've been doing 6 games, and with that, I always pick the Falcons game because I am down in the Atlanta area. I always pick the Patriots game because I'm originally from Boston and I'm a big Patriots fan. And I always do the marquee matchups, your national televised. So Thursday night, which we didn't have this week, Monday night, and Sunday night. So there you go. This week, I do have 6 games I'm picking. First up, I've got the Vikings hosting the Falcons. And the Vikings are a 3.5-point home favorite. Once again, if you're not, if you don't understand the spread, Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. So in order for the Vikings to come out as the winner, they'd have to win the game by more than 3.5 points. Ultimately, if they win by less than 3.5, then it's actually a Falcon win against the spread. Or if the Falcons win ultimately, like outright, then clearly that's a win for the Falcons. Quick explanation, but So I'm taking the Vikings, 3.5-point favorite at home over the Falcons. It's first week for the Falcons with their new coach, Raheem Morris, but there's still too many issues there. Vikings are only 1-4, but I actually think they play a little better than their record says. And look for Kirk Cousins to possibly have a big day today. The Falcons defense has shown they can't cover receivers, so Adam Thielen might go off today. Kyle Rudolph could give you a touchdown today. I'm just throwing that out there. Second matchup, I've got the Patriots hosting the Broncos. Now, ultimately, for this one, quick fact about this one. Last week when the game was originally supposed to be played, the Patriots were like a 10.5-point favorite. This week, they're 8.5-point favorite. And I think part of that's because Denver's getting Drew Lock back, their starting quarterback. If it was played last week, it would have been Brett Rippon. So, yeah. Both teams are getting their starting quarterbacks back this week. And with the Patriots being an 8.5-point favorite at home. I'm going to take the Patriots here. I know it's kind of a big number, but I think this could be a 10-point win for the Patriots. I think that's doable. So I'll take the Patriots at 8.5 point favorite. Next matchup, I have the Jaguars hosting the Lions. The Jaguars are actually a 3.5 point home underdog, but I'm actually going to take the Jaguars in this matchup. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you haven't watched a lot of Jaguars games, but Gardner Minshew has actually played pretty decently. The main problem in Jacksonville is their defense has been suspect, but I mean, the Lions, you have Matt Stafford. Yeah, I know. He's one of those guys who has a lot of name recognition in the league. Hasn't really accomplished much, but he is also in Detroit, so how much of that can you really hold against him? But this matchup I do see being high scoring. I think there's going to be points all over the place on this game. But I do think the Jaguars, even though they are the underdog, I think the Jaguars pull it out and actually get the win in this matchup. I could see like a 34-30 type win for Jacksonville. So give me the Jaguars in that matchup. Fourth matchup, we have the 49ers hosting the Rams. 49ers are a 3.5 point underdog in this one. They do get Garoppolo back, but I'm taking the Rams in this one. I think the Rams go into San Francisco and get a big win. Now, yes, the 49ers have been dealing with some injuries, but I think the Rams may actually be back. You know, after their Super Bowl loss to the Patriots, they were definitely on a downturn, but it seems like they are back to that level this year where, you know, Goff, if you can establish the run, Goff becomes effective because he can use the play action pass. And then defensively, you have Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is back to being dominant. And they have some, you know, corners with, was it Jalen Ramsey? A couple of guys who are playing well. So I think the Rams get the win in San Francisco. Next matchup, the Chiefs go into the Bills. Buffalo's a 3.5 point underdog. And I'm taking the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs get back to playing Chiefs football. I think the Bills continue to struggle on defense, which is not a good recipe in this matchup. So look for Mahomes to... I think Mahomes has a big day. Yeah. And kind of wipe away the effects of that Raiders loss. So I'm thinking the Chiefs here by... I can see a 10-point win for the Chiefs in this one. Yeah. My final pick, I have the Cardinals-Cowboys game. So the Cardinals are traveling to Dallas. Dallas is a 2.5 point underdog in this matchup. And I'm taking the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray in that offense will ultimately be enough to win it. I'm thinking like a 26-20 type game where Dalton and the offense looks pretty good, but I just think the Cardinals are a better team right now. So the Cardinals pull that out. So there are my picks. Just to recap them, got Vikings, 3.5 point favorite over the Falcons. Patriots, 8.5 point favorite over the Broncos. Jaguars as a 3.5 point underdog. I'm taking them over the Lions. The Rams over the 49ers. 49ers, 3.5 point underdog in that matchup. Gave the Chiefs over the Bills. Bills, 3.5 point underdog. And Cardinals over the Cowboys. Cowboys over the 2.5 point underdog. And another thing, with the spread, they always put the figure on the home team. That's why I said Cardinals over the Cowboys, who are 2.5 point underdog. So there you have it. Those are my picks. And I'm looking at another. I think I could go another 4-2 in this week. I would love to go 6-0, but some of these lines do make me a little worrisome. The Jaguars-Lions one definitely could go either way, so we'll see about that one. But I'm expecting to go over 500 again. And as I've said, I do, by the end of the year, want to be at 60%. I'm creeping closer and closer to that number each week. I'm now at 16-13 so far in the year. That's 55, 56%. So we're getting there. And so that's it for my picks. And that's, I guess, a good place to, end my preview for week 6. At this point, week 6 is just about getting started. So enjoy the games. Have fun watching them. Should be some good matchups on TV. Root for your team and hope for a win. But, looking forward to next couple episodes. By the time I do my next episode, the World Series matchup should be set. I should have led with this, but the Tampa Bay Rays did beat Houston Astros last night. So, congratulations to them for making it to the World Series. And I believe tonight is Game 7 in the National League Series with... All right, quick side note on this one. So the Braves were up 3-1. It's now 3-3 going into a Game 7. And I said before, I am in the Atlanta area. I don't know if the city can handle the Braves losing a 3-1 series lead. I'm just saying that. I don't know if I don't think they can handle that right now. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Braves to win tonight. Get to the World Series. And looking at that, there's no Yankees, which I love as a Red Sox fan. Thank you. There's no Astros. The Astros are a hated team around baseball. So if the Braves can get to the World Series, face off against the Rays are a tough team. They're a really good team. But this could be the Braves' shot to win a title. But they have to beat the Dodgers. All they do is beat them in Game 7. They don't have to worry about losing a 3-1 lead. But if they do lose Game 7, the Dodgers move on. That's going to be rough. That is going to be rough. Because we actually almost saw it on the other side. Tampa Bay was up 3-0. Went to a Game 7. Luckily, they beat the Astros, so we don't have to talk about that. I will in the preview, but we don't have to talk about that. But yeah. So, depending on what happens with the National League Series, it will end. It's Game 7, of course. So I will do a preview for the World Series. I will give you my prediction on who will win it. I will also start doing some college football as well, as ACC and SEC and all that. They've been going for weeks now. I've been saying I was going to put it off until Big Ten and Pac-12 start, but the Big Ten is supposed to get underway next weekend. So I'm kind of going to just talk about what I've seen so far. I'll actually give you my 4 playoff teams minus the Big Ten and Pac-12 as they get started. That's going to work its way into the whole playoff system. But, I mean, this is the situation that college football put themselves in, but we'll make some sense of it. That's coming down the line. And there's some other stuff coming as well, so, definitely stay tuned for all of that. But hope you liked this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you agree with the matchups I picked. If not, definitely drop a comment. Let me know. I mean, you can reach the podcast, myself, on the Chomping at the Bit Facebook page. If you do go there, definitely follow the page. like the episode there. Or on Twitter at Chompin Podcast. You can drop me a message there as well. But whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on, definitely subscribe or follow on there. That way, whenever I drop an episode, you will get notified. 27 episodes in, and we're just going to keep on going with it. So, definitely hope you liked it. Hope you subscribe or follow. And, as I say, be safe out there. And I'll definitely catch you on the next episode. So, all right.